Okay. Hi. So this is our breakdown of the live that we just did for the origins of green beauty. What did you think about it?
Okay, well, it was actually very heartwarming to see the many people from both of our accounts that joined in, and it was very insightful, their questions and their interests and how appreciative they were of us opening such a subject and presenting the way we did. We did knew ahead of time that when we were preparing for the talk that we wanted to give it an insight that it was not just focused specifically on beauty, but rather really seeking where origins comes from. So we had to look back into history and provide that actual information, backtracking what the different cultures influences, and we both recognize from like how the ancient magic and beauty secrets are still practiced even today. And I'll tell you, from being a Latina with parents from the Dominican Republic, I had no idea that certain rituals were already practiced, and it was all thanks to the Mayan. And like, here I am thinking that this island where I grew up that has no native, we have that part of our history blank. It's a blank. We don't have the resource to go back. We just go by the word of mouth and what our grandma and the previous generation have been doing from one generation to another. And then seeing the actual research telling us that what I told you originally, like, I do remember growing up and doing this kind of mask and doing this kind of practice and eating this and using this herb. It was all thanks to the Mayan. That was fascinating.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. It was good for me because I have been wanting to look at it for a long time, but I think that I'm glad that you took the time and the timelines, you know, of like, oh, 3,000 years ago, 4,500 years ago, 2,500 years ago. It's like, now you can see a timeline. And I don't think that's been done before, not in regards to green beauty or like natural, holistic, you know, skincare ways. And I liked it because now it's like, oh, okay, if I had a map, I could see where all of this is going.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I told you before, like, I'm such a visual person. So me seeing the actual chronological timeline and seeing how from Asia all the way to America, what an evolution it has been, and how yet the same basic parameters have always been kept to this day. That was fascinating. I'm like, how is it possible that an Asian culture that is over 5,000 years old, a practice that was founded over 5,000 years ago, it's now being portrayed as something new, when yet still we all need to be, again, mindful of our environment, mindful of our body, spirit, and mind, and focus on prevention. For me, just that was so simple, and yet it was so consistent from one culture to another, regardless where in the timeline, the message still remains the same. So what about for you within you're doing your master's in Latin American studies, and I know that fertility awareness, it's a big topic that from the top, it might be might seem irrelevant to connect it with green beauty and have a conversation, me as a brand that it's launching this year versus you who are doing your studies in this. But like I mentioned, like, okay, hormones affect us both. It affects your fertility and affects your skin and your overall wellness, your body wellness. So
I think for me, something that I've noticed when I do bring up those actual words like fertility awareness method, people get kind of turned off, and they assume that it has to do with reproduction, with making babies. It's so much more than that. It really does connect with wellness because research has shown that fertility itself, you know, the function of fertility and your reproductive health, just overall wellness, is like a fifth vital sign of health. So in recognizing that, it connects, it makes just so much more sense of how it connects with holistically your entire body and how it would affect skin. A lot of people that come off of hormonal birth control, and this was my case, your skin breaks out again, you know, and your original symptoms start to come back, because again, you're not looking at internally and what we're using and the root of the problem. Something like the pill or hormonal birth control, a lot of times it's just a band-aid to mask all of those things that we really need to look at. And that was my case, you know.
Yeah, I also know that now that I'm past my 30s, you also see as women start reaching perimenopause or menopause, they also encounter the same issue with hormonal imbalance. And not only fertility-wise, may they conceive or not conceive, if they become possibly super fertile or not. That's something that I'll learn from you if it's true. But it does affect you, because then, in my case, I'll tell you, once I passed 35, I'm 37 right now. So once I passed 35, I've always had more of a sensitive, dry skin because of my hypothyroidism since I was 5. And I was diagnosed at age 7. So I've always had my specific skin that needed like extra nourishing. So I never ever had an actual pimple. I don't know what it is to have acne. And all of a sudden I started recognizing something weird was happening, and it's my body is shifting. My hormones are readjusting. And that's also something that I haven't seen addressed within the beauty industry. Just like, okay, it's hormonal imbalance. You're getting your period. It's just, okay, it's your menstruation. Oh, it happens to everybody. And now you need to consider it that during that time of the month, then now you should be seeking out basically skincare that is for acne. But nobody's having the conversation. Okay, you need to look inwards and try to prevent those beforehand.
Like when a girl starts going through those skin changes, you know, when you hit puberty.
Puberty.
Yeah, you need to look beforehand and be able to have the tools to then teach those young girls, like, hey, you know, your skin might start to change, and what that we can do to help you, so that way you don't have to go through all this. Because what comes along with acne and all this stuff is that then it's stress, then your self-esteem, and you know, your emotional well-being, you know, and then it starts to affect all these other things. And when you put something like a pill in between that, or I don't know, you think some elixir is going to help you with that, you're not really being in tune with yourself and what's going to work for you, you know?
Right. And there's no need. I also feel that addressing, we need to keep mindfulness of our body, and we need to cut ourselves some slack and don't be so hard on ourselves, because our mind has great control of how our body handles everything around us. So for example, if you're stressed at work, very likely you are going to have a breakout in some other way. You can start perspiring, you can actually have the hormonal breakout. Like there's a series of things that can just specifically happen because you're stressed. You just cut yourself some slack and just remind yourself, like, okay, this is a stressful situation for now. Let me not be so hard on myself. And maybe before you know, now you have a different shift of mindset. And those things will be easier to alleviate. I'm not saying it's a miracle cure, but if we shift our mindset of focusing on just the bad, and just recognize, okay, this is temporary and I'm human and these things happen, I'll be fine. It's not a big deal. It'll be fine. So
I think also too, it was a good point to bring up that we need to have more discernment about who is providing the information and what the qualifications that they have to make statements like you said. You know, when somebody asked you, well, essential oils, like it was very good, and I think very respectable that you said, like, I'm not in a position where I can talk about this, you know, and I feel like that's something that's lacking in the industry.
Yeah, it at the end of the day, I want to help everyone, but I also need to keep mindfulness and
Mm-hmm.
of what are my limitations. Right now, I am representing a brand. I know I've done my homework, and I can only
Mm-hmm.
speak for what I own, which is
Mm-hmm.
my brand, my products, my effort, my education. So that's where I have ownership. And that
Mm-hmm.
is generally where I can speak from. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, in this medium, everybody wants to be the person
Everything.
that knows
Yeah.
everything.
Everything for everyone. And I feel like that's almost creating a disservice for everybody, because
Yeah,
that's why everyone's so confused now,
right.
you know?
Yeah, and it's again, I'm gonna stick to me being a skincare formulator and having my own brand. I cannot diagnose a person with a skin condition. I can
Mm-hmm.
recognize if they have inflammation or not. Like I can recognize what it is, and I know which ingredients may help with.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak about the ingredients. I cannot treat you. I cannot diagnose you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I have seen happened in the community and
Mm-hmm.
confusing the consumer because
Yeah.
they're receiving a messaging that it's not within the scope of the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what it is. And I think that as a consumer myself, I feel that we need to raise awareness of to ask the right questions, to know what are those questions. And I feel that that's where I can provide that information to tell them, the vast community, okay, this is what you need to ask. If you're going to understand on the ingredient, then ask what was the thought about it. You're not
Mm-hmm.
asking for their formula. You're not telling them, okay, tell me exactly how to make your product. I'm like, no, we're past that. This is not the
Mm-hmm.
reason that this conversation is starting. I just want to know
Yeah.
how you're sourcing it. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
don't give me the fluffy, beautiful story that sounds so beautiful that it's hard to believe. Tell me
Yeah.
what are your sustainability practices? How are you preventing obtaining those resources, retailing as an end product, but also how you're giving back to that community where you're sourcing those ingredients from?
Mm-hmm.
Are you making those questions? Are we making an impact to make that ingredient sustainable? So
Right.
you are not what's it called? Extinguishing a resource. So we do have specific ingredients that are now on threat of extinction because
Mm-hmm.
it has been over commercialized.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. It is very unfortunate. We're talking about natural resources that are perishable. And again, that's another conversation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pairing apples with pears doesn't work. We cannot compare a shelf life of a conventional skincare product with a natural skincare product if it's genuinely natural. It will perish. There are ways to balance that shelf life, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you don't expect an apple to
To
last
like
2 months.
2 months, you
So
know.
if you think of it as a skin food, because it's plant-based and it's natural, again, the word natural by itself can be very suggestive,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a live ingredient. Let's put it this way,
Yeah.
it's a live ingredient. So it
Mm-hmm.
will perish. Just keep mindfulness. If it's properly prepared, it has a timeline that is good for, and then after that, that's it. It's
Mm-hmm.
done.
Mm-hmm.
And just think of it of that way. I don't know if that was helpful, but
No, it is. It is. It's true, because um, I like that you said that it's a live ingredient, because it is.
yeah, and
It's
I think that is the shift. And I don't, and again, there are ways that within sustainability, even using bioidentical ingredients is even more sustainable than using the live ingredient itself. Again, it's more sustainable in the sense that if it's bioidentical, I mean, it can provide the same function
mm-hmm.
to the skin, to the skin in general, meaning benefits, feel, etc.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. There are existing guidelines
Mm-hmm.
to do so. So just like there's no, how can I say this? Just because it's synthetic is not always as bad.
Yeah.
I don't like the whole it's either black or it is white. Like, no.
Yeah, I don't like the purist mentality either.
No. They just get some common ground. They just get some common ground. Sometimes there are options that if it's bioidentical and it's going to prevent to devastate a natural resource from to go into extinction, if you can prevent that and it's still within the guidelines that it's not harmful, why not?
Yeah.
Seriously, why not?
Mm-hmm.
But again, this can be very polemic, and I know that people may, for the very beginning, may not feel this way, and that it's going to take some time for others to see it the same way. And it's fine if they don't see it that way. It's fine. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. We're just trying to bring this conversation to light. That it's not just you have to do it this one way and that's it. No.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, I can go all day, and I need to refrain from going on and on and on.
No, I like that you have a passion for it, because I think that you can really provide people with something to work with. And I did notice something that a lot of people did say.
Everyone, I hope you guys found this very helpful. This is after the live recording, and once this goes live, part 1 and part 2, this will doing more about this if you like it. So let us know. Thank you so much for joining us. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.